Hey everybody, my name is Harold the Herald, and you're watching Harold Wrestling. And today we're gonna talk about Hell in a Cell, which I'm sure a lot of people are talking about today. Um, the crowd was very angry at the end. Now I'm gonna go through and review the card. I'm not gonna do it in like chronological order like they did on there because I feel that's boring. I'm gonna go over the biggest stuff first, probably, and then at the end of this, I am gonna do a little preview of Monday Night Raw tonight, and talk about how they should handle the Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins situation, along with the Tyson Fury and Braun Strowman situation. Also, I might talk a little bit about with the undercard, what they should do with the future of those. I'll do another broadcast this week before the draft, probably on Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure yet because I have a weird schedule, so I'm all over the place. I don't get to watch wrestling right when it happens. I usually either have to wait till later or find a way to catch highlights at least. But I watch pretty much everything out there. I watch MLW. I don't watch as much Ring of Honor. I keep up with it a little bit, but Ring of Honor, same with Impact. But I watch MLW. I keep track of New Japan. I watch a lot of WWE. I'm getting into AEW, and I'll have thoughts about those in the future as well. And I hope y'all listen. Anyway, let's get to Hell in a Cell. And wow, I just want to say before I start this off that this week was a pretty good week in wrestling overall, right? I don't want to. It's so hard to not have the ending of this pay per view just take your stomach away. I know a lot of people were mad about Kofi on SmackDown, and I think I'll talk about that some of my next podcast or YouTube video. I might do both audio and video on these. But sorry, excuse me. But it was very disheartening after a really good week of wrestling overall. There was, you know, it's easy to not like a lot of things anymore because there's so many things that people complain about and everything like that. It's not just like there is a ton of great wrestling out there if you want to look for it. If you get the network, there's old school wrestling that you can watch from NWA, WCW, old WWE. I mean, all sorts of good stuff from the old days. I think they have world class championship wrestling. So you got NWA starting up with Billy Corgan, and I think Tuesday will be the premiere on YouTube of their studio tape shows, which I'm really looking forward to. You got SmackDown, you got Raw, you got NXT is great, NXT UK is great, 205 Live. I know last week got canceled. I think that's pretty much the end of it. But I think WWE eventually is going to have a show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and maybe even Saturday for every night of the week because that's their goal in the end. They want to be, they want it to become just like Marvel, they said. And what they mean by that is they want to flood the market with as much stuff as possible. And Marvel does it in the movies, and they have a little bit of TV, but usually it's mostly movies and comics and that sort of stuff. And obviously, like action figures, toys, merchandise of T-shirts. Like I'm wearing, DC, Batman. I'm wearing that shirt right now. So WWE wants to be that. The problem is to do that, you actually have to make stars, and the WWE focuses too much on the company itself and doesn't tell stories based on the characters in the company, but tell stories based on how they want to run the company, and that's a huge problem with WWE, and that's the problem with this pay per view and the company overall. Okay, there's too many times that the WWE puts itself above the growth of its talent, and I don't understand it because without guys like The Rock, without guys like Stone Cold, who have become bigger names maybe than the W, like The Rock, it's arguable that The Rock is maybe a bigger name than the WWE at this point, right? Because he's the highest grossing movie star. Wrestling definitely isn't as popular as it was back then. Even though I think wrestling is still popular because there's just so much of it out there now. It's really hard to like narrow it down. I think there's a lot of people like me that do watch just a little bit of everything or a lot of everything, and I think there are certain people that just watch WWE or just watch Raw or just watch SmackDown. So I think it's like a 50-50 crowd with that because the wrestling audience is hardcore. So I think that's what the WWE ran into tonight with the pay per view is they were booking the company above the talent, and once you do that, you're always gonna lose because nobody gives really like. I know there's AEW chance. Nobody really cares about the company. They care about the performers. They care about Cody Rhodes. They care about the Young Bucks. They care about Kenny Omega. Whether you like them or not, people care about. They obviously have a following. They did way better in the ratings than I thought they would the first week. I mean, I thought they'd maybe come close to a million. They did 1.5 million, and they killed NXT. And that wasn't an indictment on NXT. I just think NXT has been around so long, and most people know a little bit of it. And I don't think, as much as the hardcore wrestling fans love NXT, I don't think when they see a guy like Johnny Gargano, who's a small guy, and you just show him and you promote him, and a lot of the guys on the NXT brand. That it's really hard to promote that brand to bigger audiences when you don't have like larger than life characters. Lots of great wrestlers. I'm not saying that Velveteen Dream isn't a large life character, but I'm just saying it's hard to promote that with the type of brand they are. Whereas AEW has these characters like the Monday Night Raw guys, you know. So, you have Luchasaurus, you have Cody, you have Dustin, you have the Young Bucks, you have Kenny Omega, you have John Moxley, you have Jericho. I know they don't have a lot of huge stars right now, but we'll get into them later. Anyway, let's get back to the pay per view. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. But the point of that is I just wanted to make sure that people understand that's the problem WWE has. They book themselves, just like the McMahons book themselves above the talent. They book the company above the talent as well. And this is the whole problem with this whole pay-per-view tonight. Because to be honest, there was a lot of wrestling this week, and they just treated this like nobody cared. Nobody was a throwaway. But everybody cared about this week. You can't have this much hype this week and then have a huge pay-per-view to top off the week and just be like, we don't care about it. And not only that, you do that, and then you got the Crown Jewel coming up, right? Which I cut my subscription off the WWE after they did the initial Crown Jewel after the journalist died. I just got my WWE network back last month because it really made me sick. It really did. And it makes me sicker when these legends come out of retirement because all of a sudden there's a big payday. Like the people in America that didn't build this company have been keeping it afloat for years. When there was no competition, when there was nothing else to watch, right? I was still a loyal wrestling fan. There's plenty of people that was still a loyal wrestling fan. Now, was I buying T-shirts like I was in the Attitude Era? No, I was not. But what I was doing was I was paying for the pay-per-views. I would buy some magazines and stuff like that. I would give back to the company. I stopped buying merchandise. I think the last thing I bought, and I don't have a lot of this stuff anymore because I moved and I lost a lot of stuff. I moved a couple times, but the CM Punk shirt was the last thing I bought from WWE. As far as merchandise goes. Otherwise than that, I'll buy DVD. Besides DVDs, I buy DVDs and pay-per-views and stuff like that. But over the years, I've given thousands and thousands of dollars to this company, as have other people. And it's really insulting that they also book this Saudi Arabia show like a super show. But it means nothing in the end, unless they want it to. And now they're going to put a lot of big matches on there. And I feel like they're going to put Seth and Rollins and Wyatt on there again and give us the actual ending we should have had in the States here. I'm not saying that the Crown Jewel pay-per-views can't be great and all that stuff, but why aren't we getting that type of stuff here in the States? And they give us stuff like this tonight. So, just quickly in the Wyatt match, I'm sure most of you watch this have watched it, and if you haven't, don't bother. No, really don't. A lot of people are looking for this. So, one thing they did that I did like, so let's get at the stuff that I did like out of the way, okay? The beginning of the match, they had the lights turned red for the whole match, number one. After Wyatt's entrance, the lights turned red, and I thought it was just, it took me a minute to realize that was going to stay that way, because they did it during the introductions, and I thought, okay, when the introductions are done, they'll click the lights back on. That actually worked for this, though. That was a good move. It was smart. It made it a little more terrifying, a little more, whatever. And I'm not big in, I love the Bray Wyatt character. I think some of it's kind of hokey, but I still like it. I think it's interesting. I think they could do a lot with it, but I don't have much faith after the night. So what happens in the match is that you have Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt going at it. Bray Wyatt is dominant in the beginning. He hits his sister Abigail off the cage early in the match. He's basically beating down Rollins. Rollins, gets some offense in. But basically Bray is no-selling everything. Bray is getting up and no-selling curb stomp. I mean, he no-sold curb stomps. He no-sold just about everything in this match. So it got to a point where the match really fell apart. And what happened was is that Rollins got control and he curb stomped Bray into the mat. Lord knows how many times. I mean, I lost count. It was this ridiculous amount. And then he hit him over the head with a chair, and then he put that chair on top, and he hit it with a ladder, and then he put the ladder over the top, and he got a toolbox and was hitting that with a toolbox, and then he put a chair over the top, and then he put that toolbox on and got a sledgehammer and hit all that on top of Bray Wyatt's face. Now, one thing I did notice during this pay-per-view is that WWE has a no chair shots to the head policy, but I don't know if anybody else noticed this. They took creative ways to really take chair shots to the head without the visual of swinging a chair to the head. They would put the chair up in the cage in some point matches, like with Sasha and Becky. But it's just interesting that they have this no chair shot policy, but they found ways to take chair shots to the head without actually looking like chair shots to the head. So that's one thing I noticed about this match, which was interesting. I'm just saying, if you're gonna do that, just start taking chair shots to the head again. Because what's the difference? Was Bray any more protected laying there with his hands in front of, as long as people put their hands up in their front of their face. If people don't put up their hands in front of their face, then they get 3 strikes and they're out. That's what I would say with that. I would say 3 strikes and then you're off TV for a full year. You're suspended for a full year if you take him to the head with no protection to the head, like Cody did, because we don't want another Cody accident. Okay. So, anyways, they do all this when, number one, when the ref starts pleading with Steph about you're gonna kill the guy, you're killing the guy. Now, I am not in favor of having the ref be a very central part of a match. Not saying that you can't use a ref in a match, but to have a ref shouting you're going to kill him, the ref needs to stay out of it because this is a Hell in a Cell. There are no rules. And when there are no rules, the ref's just going to let it go. And, it's not real life. So we know on TV, it's not like UFC where if the ref is like, you're going to kill him, and the guy's like, I don't fucking care. Sorry about the cussing. I'm going to try to clean that up. But when the ref's like, I don't, the ref isn't trying to actually step in to save a life in like UFC and stuff like that. In WWE, you should never, 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 never have a ref stepping in to save somebody's life. I don't care. It just makes no sense unless that ref is gonna become a wrestler. Like if Drake, God, I can't remember his name, but the NXT referee that used to be like a hardcore guy. If him and Cassius Ohno got into it like they did with Sid Scala in NXT, then okay. Then okay, I can see the ref getting involved, and he's actually going to have a match and a payoff. But the way the ref was begging and pleading, like he was personal friends with these guys, kind of, it just came across so cheesy. So that's number one. So then Seth actually hits him with a sledgehammer, and the ref throws the match out. Now, before the ref even threw the match out, what really bugged me is that Seth was so, tons of curb stomps. I mean, had to be 10, maybe 15. Maybe even 20. I don't know. You just lost count because he just kept doing it over and over and over again. So they throw the match out. And the crowd is... Number one, the crowd was booing the whole time Seth was stomping. Like, every curb stomp, the boos got louder, it seemed like, right? So then they throw the match out. Number one, Bray should have never been on the ground that long. He was no-selling everything, right? And then Bray, he gets beat down. But the over-the-topness of this was ridiculous because even... with all that stuff going on, right? So that should have been the end of Bray, right? So then they raise the cage. They're ready to get Bray on the stretcher. And then Seth walks up and for some reason decides to, now he's not terrified of Bray. And decides to come up and start basically yelling at him, you did this. And then Bray, of course, no selling all this stuff that happened, reaches up and grabs Rollins in the mandible claw. So, of course, he grabs Rollins in the mandible claw. I think he gives him his sister Abigail, and they fall outside the ring. And then he gives him the mandible claw outside the ring again, and they start doing their lighting stuff where they, the screeching noise, and he's lighting, and Seth starts like bleeding heavily out of his mouth. It's just ridiculous. Like a fountain of blood starts pouring out. So it's like really one of the most ridiculous endings, the worst calls of WWE. And they've had so many bad ones too. And this thing, wrestling has been so frustrating. It's like I really want to love it. I do. I love wrestling. It's been my getaway from everything. When I've gone through some rough times, even during the Cena years, like I didn't hate Cena like everybody else did. If you actually watched Cena, you understood that he was a student of the game. You understand that he was a good wrestler. People finally caught on to that, but they did make him too strong, I felt sometimes, but that wasn't his fault. That was the fault of the company, just like this is the fault of the company. So sometimes you can put it on the guys and say it's their fault. Like I'm not a big Seth Rollins believer lately because I think a lot of what he does. And when I do these shows, I'm not going to go too much into like Twitter stuff and people's personal lives and stuff like that, unless they put it on TV or it's so like such a big story I can't talk about it because I really don't care. I'm going to tell you, if anybody from WWE or any wrestler ever watches my stuff, I will let you know right away. I do not care about your personal life unless you make it an issue yourself. Sorry, I'm going to take off my glasses because of the glare, but I don't care. I just don't care. I don't care that Seth is dating Becky. It really doesn't matter unless they're a thing on TV, and when they did the thing on TV with it wasn't very good, and then it never went anywhere. We rarely ever hear of it again. They just kind of make subtle winks and nods to it. I think they should have turned them both heel and made them like a heel power couple because I think Becky's cooled off a lot. Seth is obviously cooled off with. People want to hate Seth right now. He comes off as a jerk on Twitter and stuff like that, where he attacks the fans and stuff, and he's attacked other wrestlers. And like I said, I don't want to get into that too much, but he comes off as a jerk on TV too, and he comes off as it just comes off as weak. It's unbelievable that this is the guy they had beat Brock Lesnar. Anyway, so the ending was horrible. The crowd is chanting and booing and yelling bullshit and AEW and anything you could think of that would make Vince McMahon probably lose his mind in the back. And he has nobody but to blame but himself because, like everybody says, Vince McMahon is still in control of the company. And as long as Vince is in control of the company, we're going to see this type of schmozzy stuff that we've been seeing for the past 10, 15, since the beginning of the WWE. Even with the Attitude Era. Like, I wasn't a guy. I like The Rock, but I wasn't a guy that was like totally into the Attitude Era like everybody else was. I was always like a WCW NWA guy. I grew up on the Horsemen. I grew up on Flair. I watched more WWE when Flair was in WWE probably than any point ever. Until WCW went out of business, and so it's not that I'm not a fan of Stone Cold and The Rock and Undertaker and all those guys. No, I watched a lot of that too back in the day. But I'm just saying overall, my preference was more towards the NWA, WCW. But then again, near the end, they weren't obviously the same thing they had started out to be. And I know there's revisionist history about WCW screws up everything. WCW was great for a lot of years. Let's get that straight right now. WCW was great for a lot of years. A lot of people pick on it now because of the way it ended and because some of the silly decisions with Russo giving the book and But WCW was not like terrible forever. There was a lot of good stuff they did, especially in the '80s, or late '80s, early '90s, when when NWA and WCW kind of like traded places. I guess is the best way you could put it. So anyways, the Wyatt Rollins match ends. The big schmaz. I'm gonna talk at the end of because I want to keep you all tuned in, right? You want to know how do you fix this problem? What do you do with Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt now? Because you've taken the hottest character and just took a dump on it in front of everybody on one of the biggest weeks. Like for WWE to think that they weren't, I don't want to say not going to get a lot of buys, but not a lot of eyes on this pay per view after this week in wrestling with AEW debuting, with Tyson Fury and Cain Velasquez coming to WWE. If they thought that this was a good idea to just make this a throwaway pay per view, they're out of their minds. And the booking teams it's so lazy. It really is. And this is one thing that bugs me, not just in WWE. This bugs me across the medium. Whether it's journalism, whether it's comic books, whether it's movies, whether it's TV, whether it's lazy writing. And they have the draft coming up, which I'll talk about the draft on another podcast, but they have the draft coming up, which is another lazy concept, right? And it's just like to think that you can just throw away this stuff and then people aren't going to be mad. And this is the other thing that bugs me, is a guy like Seth Rollins, right, will come out and attack the fans sometimes. It's like you're so tone deaf. People want to watch your product. There are people that are going to watch, like me, probably no matter what, and bitch about it. But you should be happy you have us, because last time I checked, y'all ain't doing that great in the ratings most of the time, right? Yeah, you might be, get a couple million here and there when big names from the past come up, which should tell you something. But on a weekly average, what is Raw doing? Less than $1.5 million a week? What is SmackDown doing? Less than $1.5 million a week? NXT only did 800 and something thousand for their debut, which was another mistake. Like the whole it was it was a 2-hour debut. They debuted 2 weeks earlier, even though it was an hour of programming at the time. It was still 2 weeks earlier. They still debuted on TV, so it's not a debut. So to put that up against NXT, now the first seat, what I would be concerned about with NXT is the first week it was over $1 million, right? And now you're down to 850,000, and AEW did $1.4 million, almost $1.5 million, right? They should be concerned about that because NXT is a great product. NXT is, I'm not saying they're perfect, but as far as wrestling shows go, if they're not near the top, they are the top. They are really. I mean, I like some other programs out there, but right now, NXT is one of the top programs out there in all of wrestling. Can't be denied. But nobody's going to trust WWE if they watch these, all this casual crowd that hasn't been tuning into Raw and SmackDown. Why would they turn into NXT? Because you're not showing them anything on your other products that makes them think that that's a good idea. And you can sit there and go alternative while you run. It's really not all that different from a lot, like wrestling overall. This idea that like wrestling overall is that much different across the board. You have certain genres like the hardcore stuff, like the deathmatch stuff, I should say. And otherwise than that, pretty much like it's all strong style stuff now, right? Like even the Miz is kind of strong style now, so it's not like wrestling is all that different across the board. Some people just go harder than others. Some people tell different stories. Like WWE can do different styles, like with the Monday Night Raw, right, and make it more entertainment based, and Friday Night SmackDown to make it more sports based. But once they get in the ring, it's all the same. Okay. So, anyways, I'll talk later about how to fix the Wyatt and Rollins thing. Right now, let's get into the rest of the big story. So, I basically put an order of what I think was the biggest deal, and it's not necessarily big news, but what the biggest news out of the pay per view was, and I'm gonna go in order. And so, this pay per view overall was just, it started out really good, right? But one thing, I'm gonna combine the two women's title matches, okay? Because you had Becky and Sasha start off the show. Had a great Hell in a Cell match. Probably better than the one Sasha and Charlotte had, but it wasn't like one of my favorite matches of all time. But it was really good. They had a lot of creative stuff. Um, I liked Becky's character a lot when she was doing the Ronda and her thing. Unfortunately, I think she's cooled off a lot, and it's really hard to gain momentum back when you don't have people that you can really work with that can kind of take you to the next level. So I think Becky's kind of already peaked for now, at least. Not saying that she can't recover and do better later, but I don't care if you put her in the ring with a Rock. Eric Rowan was in the ring with a Rock at one point too. So I think it was Rusev. And did it ever help any of those guys? And I know he was like squashing them out, but like, when does the Rock come in the ring and it's actually helped anybody? He didn't even help Roman Reigns. Remember when the Rock came to the ring for Roman Reigns and Roman Reigns still got booed? I don't see. So it's not that big a deal to me. It's just one of those things. Like Rock was there, he said something to Becky, and then he squashed Corbin. It was kind of Becky's way of getting her comeuppance from taking the end of days from him, which, by the way, should have been Seth doing that for her. But that's a whole other thing. Another reason why the company has trouble like telling stories, because the guy that should have stuck up for Becky did nothing. Like did nothing really, right? So anyways, long story short, on the Becky Sasha match was, it was a good match. Becky won with a disarmer. She tapped out, which I also didn't like. I thought this should be a pinfall. Like if you're gonna do Hell in a Cell, right? I don't feel like, I think you need to have a pinfall finish in Hell in a Cell unless you're gonna do something extreme. Like it was just a regular disarmer. I mean, I know she exploded, gave her the exploder suplex. So the way the match ended was, um, Becky gave Sasha, I think it was off the top rope, an exploder suplex on a pile of chairs, and then put the disarmer and had her tap. Now this is one match I'll say, since you have the WWE Network and you skip the matches, I'll say go watch this match. It was a decent enough match to watch. It was very good. It would be very entertaining, some creative spots. But like I said, I think making Sasha tap in a Hell in a Cell, I always think Hell in a Cell should be a pinfall finish or a knockout finish. Mostly pinfall. Save the submissions for the regular matches or I Quit matches or something like that. Hell in a Cell, it just needs to be a beating. It just needs to be a brutality knockout type of fight, a street fight, whatever you want to call it. It's the submission in a Hell in a Cell just really makes no sense. So, and then the other part of the women's title picture was Bayley lost the belt to Sasha. So now you had Bayley and Sasha both lose. So now with the draft coming up, what I think is going to happen, obviously you're going to have Charlotte on one brand, you're going to have Becky on the other. I don't think they're going to switch. The one thing about the draft, and it's stupid if they do it, if you have a Raw women's champion and a SmackDown women's champion, right? If you draft them to one brand or the other, are they going to, like, is a SmackDown women's champion going to be on Raw? So I'm going to say they're probably not going to be drafted to the same brand. Most of the champions are. The Intercontinental in the U.S. could be on the same brand, or those champions could be moved around. It doesn't really matter. But if it's SmackDown tag team, if it's Raw tag team, if it's Raw women's, if it's SmackDown women's, those ones got to stay where they're at. So I see Charlotte and Bayley and Sasha going to SmackDown and Becky staying on Raw. Now I know you say, well, that's a lot on the women's side on SmackDown. Well, SmackDown wants to be more sports oriented anyway. And I also think that with Sasha and Bayley both losing, the best thing they could do now is team with Charlotte and make like a horsewoman stable that they haven't done yet with these girls yet. They haven't really done like a solid heel horsewoman stable with these girls. So you could put Charlotte, Sasha, Bayley in a stable and maybe bring somebody else in for that fourth member now obviously if Tessa Blanchard was signed to WWE, that'd be a great addition. Maybe I'll give some thoughts later about who I think. I have a couple ideas of who that should be. Not Lacey Evans, by the way. Um, but I think if you put them together as a heel stable on SmackDown, that would help all of them, and it would at least give competition and make Sasha and Bailey the tag team women's champions. Even though we're going to talk about what happened with the women's tag team championship later, but that's the best thing I think you could do for them. I don't think, I think you want to have Charlotte as your women's champion. I know a lot of people like to hate on how much, but she's Charlotte Flair. She's the daughter of the greatest wrestler in the world. She has the goods. It's not. I could see people hating on somebody if they didn't have the goods. Like a lot of people like to hate on Baron Corbin for a long time because he wasn't. He was very green, and he wasn't very good on the mic. I think he's improved tons. I think he's getting some of the credit he deserves now. I don't think people are hating on as much. For some reason, a woman like Charlotte, who has all the tools, is everything you'd want in a wrestling, would have mainstream appeal. By the way, just because of the name Flair alone, and they don't put her in any positions that like scream that she's the greatest women's wrestler besides just slapping the belt on her. I think WWE has this problem of thinking that their superstars can't be leaders of groups because they do this brand split thing. And I'm gonna stop that right now, but I'll talk about why I think the brand split in the draft is a bad idea on my next show. Anyway, so that's the thing I think Sasha and Bailey should do is go and put them on the SmackDown side, keep Becky on the Raw side, give Becky some fresh faces, keep them out of the ring with each other as far as opponents. All these girls, I've seen enough. I've seen enough Sasha Bailey, Sasha Becky in the ring as opponents forever. Put Sasha Bailey, Charlotte all together in a group. Let them kind of run the show on SmackDown. Make them the bar for the tag team division and the women's division on that show. So the next thing, I guess the next biggest story out of the Hell in a Cell, or the next biggest match, was the Roman Reigns. Sorry, I'm looking at my notebook, so I'm new to this thing. Hopefully you guys enjoy, and I'm trying not to so much and not be boring, but and I don't want to be. I try not to swear as well, so because I'm a cursor, I can't lie, but I want younger fans to watch the show, even if it's kids or not, because I want people to understand how good storytelling works. And not saying that I'm the greatest storyteller in the world, but pretty confident I can do better than the creative team. And you know what? You can at me whatever you want with creative team. Harold the Herald, I believe it is on Twitter. If it's not, I'll go check it. I don't know what the hash. I don't know. I just got an account that I kind of keep track of wrestling with on there. I don't really get onto it too much, but yeah, y'all suck. Y'all suck. Y'all creative, and maybe it's Vince. Maybe I don't know what it is, but it's not good. And so now you have Bryan and Reigns taking on Harper and Rowan. Good match. Another like, and this was the second match, and this was disappointing with this whole pay per view. The start of this pay per view was actually really good. The Becky Sasha Hell in a Cell, really good match, excellent match. Reigns, Bryan, Roman Harper was a good match. I'm not gonna say it was great. It was good. There's some good stuff. But the only thing that bugs me about this match is Harper has has a victory over Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan. Right, last time I checked. So then this week he lost to Roman Reigns in the lumberjack match, and then him and Harper, who are tag team specialists, lose to Bryan and Reigns. Now Harper, it did take a lot to put Harper down. So there was a Superman punch followed by a knee plus, I still call it, and a spear. And Reigns pins Harper for the win. I'm not gonna go through the whole match. I don't. You got listen. I know there's a ton of other podcasts out there. They're gonna go through all these whole matches, and if you guys listen to me, chances are you probably listen to one or two of them too. You want to break down to the whole match, you go watch them. I'm just giving you the Cliff Notes version and what I think should happen or why this happened. Like with obviously with like the Wyatt Rollins stuff, they were trying to keep Wyatt looking strong and not keep the belt off Rollins, but the whole thing didn't work. Another thing with the Sasha and Becky and the Charlotte and Bailey stuff is their goal was obviously to put Charlotte and Becky as the headstones of each the head women on each brand. So that's why they had to make Sasha and Bailey lose, and that's fine. So as long as you just don't bury Sasha and Bailey afterwards, because they actually are two of your top stars in this division that lacks a lot of stars. So anyways, what they were trying to accomplish here with Reigns and Bryan is, I think, obviously a Bryan face turn fully because he was given the hug after the match, right? Which was, by the way, number one, Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns at the end of the match, right? This bugged me. Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns at the end of the match after they won. Roman Reigns goes to shake Bryan's hand, And then Bryan turns and walks away. Now, number one, I know they were doing it to do the hug it out thing. Bryan shouldn't be hugging anybody anymore. His character has evolved to a point where it's like he, it just I don't. I like to hug it out with Kane and stuff and bring that back later on, but not with Roman Reigns. And number two, they already shook hands after the lumberjack match on SmackDown, if I'm not mistaken, right? They shook hands. So what was the big deal about having a handshake after you win this match? I don't get it. So that right away, when I see that, see, and this is the thing. So I talk about lazy writing and stuff like this. That is a plot hole, or something that's not as like the reasoning of it made no sense because they've already shaken hands on SmackDown. So that small little thing, yes, it's a small thing, but it's a big deal. So I hope that they, if anybody ever listens to this, the little details matter. So I think what they were trying to accomplish again was keep Rowan and Harper looking strong because they did dominate a lot of the match, and then have Bryan and Reigns win, and then they're going to go off probably and do their own things. I don't see them being on the same brand. I think it's a smart idea to put Roman Reigns on Raw and Daniel Bryan keep him on SmackDown. I think that's the way it's going to stay. I think they could have lost this match, and it would not have hurt them one bit. They could have lost this match, and then they could have separated, and they didn't have to feud. Just because they lose a match together doesn't have to feud. In fact, Daniel could be so mad that he's not getting his revenge on Roman Reigns. He's taking it out on everybody else for losing that match on SmackDown. Simple stuff, right? So Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan win. They shake hands. They hug it out. Match over with. And in this meantime, instead, like they could have even saved it if Rowan and Harper had decided after the match that they weren't through. They could have just beat down Bryan and Reigns completely, and they didn't. They just laid there, whatever, and walked to the back. It was just kind of a weird blow-off ending. So now, what do you do with Harper and Rowan? What do you do? I'd have to think about that one for a minute because to me, this is a big loss for them. I was never a big Eric Rowan guy, but I think he did tremendous with what he was kind of falling into here. And I think he did a tremendous job with it. I think he came out looking better in the end than he did before he left. But then after this match, he goes right back down to where he was before. So I think you should just have them be dominant. And then, on Monday, you're going to need tag team champions on Raw and SmackDown because I honestly think Ziggler and Rude and the Revival. I think the Revival is going to go to SmackDown. I think Ziggler's going to go to SmackDown. I think Rude's going to be on Raw. So you have to get the belts on them. So what I would do is tomorrow night have them come out, and I don't care that it's two heel teams wrestle each other. Have them take the Raw tag team titles, and I believe who has the Raw tag team titles. I see this thing. They do such a horrible job of all this that I can't remember which champions are which because they put them all in the ring together all the time. It doesn't matter when you So I'm gonna say whoever's the Raw tag team champions. I hope it's Ziggler and Rude if they're going to split them up. And I like Ziggler and Rude as a tag team. I think they should keep them as a tag team and move them to SmackDown as well. And actually give them entrance together. But we'll talk about that another time. But anyway, so I think what you need to do with Rowan Harper now is you need to put the tag team titles on them and have a dominant run. Fight with the Viking Raiders maybe. I know they're not that over and everything. We'll talk about them in a little bit too. But Rowan and Harper, they're not like super over or anything, but they're big, strong guys. They make a good stepping stone kind of tag team or singles wrestlers even. I'm not saying like they should be world champions, but can't you see them kind of floating around that picture a little bit if they could? And this is the thing we'll talk about with the draft and another thing, but when I do my draft show. But you can still make people look strong and not be in the world title picture, and that's half the problem WWE has. Is the guys they choose to make look strong outside of the WWE title picture are the same ones. So you get the same ones floating around instead of having some movement up and down in the company. There's really not a lot of movement up and down in the company. It looks like they're going to do it sometimes. Sometimes somebody breaks through, but in the long run, right, they always get knocked back down to where they're supposed to be at according to the company, as opposed to how the fans see them, how other wrestling journalists, and a lot of bad wrestling journalists out there, don't get me wrong, but how wrestling community media feels about them, how the wrestling fans feel about them, how the casual fan would perceive this stuff, So that's the thing is you got to have these guys, and it's a tag team match. What does it hurt Bryan and Reigns to take a loss in a tag team match? It really doesn't because they're singles wrestlers. In fact, they should be losing tag team matches to tag teams that have been around for years together and are big two dominant guys. So I didn't like that. Thought the match was fun, but I'm gonna give it a thumbs down for the finish. So then we had a title change. Only two title changes tonight. Charlotte, of course, beat Bailey in a decent match. It was a good match. I mean, and then Bailey. Oh, I forgot. Bailey had like the crying breakdown at the end, which whatever. Like I think you could use that as a catalyst to put her with Charlotte. And that anyway. So then you had the Kabuki Warriors beating Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Now, number one, like if you're gonna make people an official tag team and put them together, give them some goddamn music and an entrance. I mean, really, it's not that. Why is it's the weirdest sounding thing to go from Asuka's music to Kairi Sane's music? And Kairi Sane, somebody needs to talk to her and be like, if you're gonna be tagged with Asuka and call yourself the Kabuki Warriors, why are you a pirate? Take that freaking wheel away from her. Get her away from the pirate gig. Have her be a swashbuckler. Closest thing, right? Like have her be that. But it makes no sense. So, anyways, now and all of a sudden, the Kabuki Warriors are heels for some reason, and I don't know why. I watched most everything. I haven't really seen, and they didn't have Paige with them either, which was weird. I thought Paige was with them, right? Or did she like give them up? I must have missed this because they do some stuff online that I never see. Because I don't feel like I should have watch 5 hours of YouTube videos and top all the rest of it on TV just to keep up with what's going on. I'm gonna go by what you show me on the TV most of the time. Not that I don't keep up a lot of time, but you put so much stuff out that it's really hard to keep up with the YouTube shows and this and that and this and that. So, um, anyway, so the Kabuki Warriors won the tag team titles after Asuka missed Nikki Cross in the face and then hits her with a kick or something. I can't even know what she hit her with. But anyway, roundhouse kick, I think it was. So that was it. And new women's tag team champions. Match wasn't great or anything like that. Another, like, this, the thing was, too, is, like, the match qualities, I felt like a lot of, this pay-per-view could have cut an hour off. I'll talk about that at the end. This pay-per-view could have literally cut an hour off it, though. And been a solid, at least, pay-per-view, except for the ending, right? But there's so many matches like this, it just kind of dragged on. I don't mind the Kabuki Warriors as tag team champions. I think they'll be fine as tag team champions. I think they're a better team than Bliss and Cross. I think Alexa Bliss should be a manager. She's been decent in the ring and all that, but she really, it's tough to see her as a serious competitor when she's so small. And I know, like, it's not that she's just small; it's that she doesn't look fierce. She doesn't look intimidating in it. She doesn't look scary. She's like a pretty little tiny girl. She should be managing people. And plus, with all her injuries and everything she's had, somebody's just got to talk to her and be like, look, you're not going to be able to keep this up forever. You're too small. Get too many big women in there. Too many athletic women that are faster, stronger, all this stuff. And I know, like, at least Sasha has a vicious side to her that when she has a match, you can kind of see where she hurts people at. Where I feel like Alexa, you kind of have to, like, she doesn't have this. She tries to act vicious, but she's not really vicious. She just makes a mean face. You know what I mean? Where Sasha's like stomping on people's hands, and I just, there's a huge difference between the two. I think Alexa Bliss will be a tremendous manager and will get guys over. I know she used to be with Buddy Murphy, and I know they kind of broke up, I guess. And like I said, I don't like to talk about people's personal lives, but the only reason I'm saying it this way is because I think that the next move for her could be to move with Buddy Murphy, hopefully, and make the Secret Society. And not just like I'm all for stables in WWE right now, but that's what I think the next move should be for Alexa's pair her with Buddy. I think Nikki, hell, send her to NXT with Killian Dane. He just lost a big match with Matt Riddle. Maybe she needs to go down and light a fire under his butt, and get him to be a monster, and then she can have some matches with some of the newer talent down there, and get her off Raw, and let her be her Nikki Cross character that she's actually supposed to be, as opposed to this. I don't even know what she's supposed to be on Raw. Like, she went from being like a psycho to like special needs. And I'm not saying that as be disparaging. It's just the way they book her. It's just, I just don't understand it. So I'm hoping they get those two separate. Maybe this will turn into a feud. I almost think, because Bliss was outside screaming at Nikki Cross a little bit. And I wasn't picked up with it, but it made it seem like she was a little bit angry. But they didn't really show it too much. So I think there'll be a split probably coming with those two. Alright, so the next thing you have is Chad Gable versus Baron Corbin. Now, we've seen this match a couple times. We saw it at King of the Ring, obviously, where King Corbin won his crown. and we saw it again on Raw with a DQ finish, and then now we see it here. And basically, what happened was this: is Baron Corbin. It's like I make these sighing sounds because there was so much stuff on this pay per view just made your stomach drop, right? And this is about the time where my stomach started dropping because the first thing they did was this. It's not that it was a bad match. It's this. As Baron Corbin grabbed the microphone and, of course, made a bunch of short jokes before the match, and then he did one thing at the end of it, and I said, "Oh my god!" And I knew they were going to try to make that stick as soon as it came out of his mouth because we've heard rumors about it. But call him Shorty Gable, right? Shorty Gable. Now this guy is a heel, and he says, now you're called Shorty Gable, right? So Gable ends up having a match with him, beats him with some kind of crummy roll up, which is stupid. He should have tapped like. The thing about it is now later on in the evening, they do an interview. Okay, so let me line this up. Okay, so Gable wins with a roll up, right, and wins the match. So then, of course, during the match, you have Corey Graves calling Chad Gable Shorty Gable, which he's a heel commentator. Okay, fine. So then you go to the back later, and Gable's starting to walk up to an interview, and with one of the interview girls, I don't know her name, walks up and she goes, Shorty, oh, Gable, oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to call you that. Now, number one, that is the dumbest shit. You're trying to make it like that everybody's going to start calling him Shorty. Your announcers are calling him it. Your interview, who's not a heel, by the way. Or at least not that I know of, right? So, you have her call Chad Shorty Gable. And he's like, call me whatever you want. So that's going to stick. That is the most terrible thing for this guy who has worked his ass off to get prominent. If you think, and listen, if you go to Raw, please do not chant Shorty Gable unless you want to bury this guy's career, because that's what they're looking at him like a joke. See, they try to spin it like they're doing the story about him being an underdog and he's going to overcome the odds and blah blah blah. Right? That's what the thing is, and they're going to name him Shorty Gable or Shorty G. Right? That's the other thing floating around. Shorty G, because they have a trademark out for that. Shorty G. If the WWE crowds chant this at him, you all just must hate wrestling. You really, the people that were booing. If the people that were booing tonight for Bray Wyatt start chanting Shorty Gable or Shorty G or any of this bullshit, y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. Y'all have no right to brew that Bray Wyatt shit if you're gonna start chanting Shorty Gable. I'm gonna say that right now. Okay, so let's kill that for them. Don't make that a chant. But the problem is now, right? So Gable gets attacked by Corbin. So obviously they're going to have another match. Number one, didn't WWE say they were going to stop doing these rerun matches? I've seen Chad Gable and Baron Corbin in the ring 3 times now, right? 3 times is the tops anybody should be in the ring with each other. And I will say it within a 6-month period, maybe a year period. 3 times. I don't need to see more than 3 matches between you guys most of the time. There are some exceptions to the rule, but most of the time, 3, maybe 5, but 3 is the most I want to see you guys in the ring within a few consecutive months together in a one-on-one match. I'm not saying you can't do tag team matches or triple threats or whatever, which I'm not a big fan of all that crap either, but at least as far as one-on-one matches go, you can only do the same thing with the same person so many times before it becomes boring. So another problem is, right, so now they're going to have another match. But the problem is if we don't chant Shorty Gable or Shorty G, they're going to think in the back that Chad Gable's not over because Shorty G. They're not chanting your name. And even if you can't chant Gable, they're going to go, well, you were supposed to get Shorty over, Chad. You were supposed to get Shorty. You couldn't do it, Chad. You're not a high-level guy. So they look at him like a joke backstage. This is what I take it, because that's the only reason you do this, right? The only reason you do this, it's not because you want to make him goofy funny like Kurt Angle, because he's shorter than Kurt Angle. What they should have done, if they want this guy to be taken seriously, is at some point, they could have done this at a bunch of points in his career. Kurt Angle obviously loves wrestling, right? He can't wrestle anymore. He still has enthusiasm, and you saw when he did his GM role, which he wasn't the greatest at, but he had a lot of enthusiasm. Why not put Kurt Angle as this guy's mentor and manager? What is wrong with having him? It would help this kid out so much. And instead, you want to do Shorty fucking G. And I'm sorry, there I go sorting it. You want to do Shorty Gable. You know what? It's whatever. You want to do Shorty G, Shorty Gable. Just Please don't, WWE. Please stop. Like, I hope you learned something from tonight, but you probably didn't because this is not the first time you've been booed out of the building for a fucking pay per view. And I'm just gonna cuss now because this pay per view made me so goddamn upset. And I hate to get upset about this stuff. It makes, and this is the problem. The last couple of years, I used to listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts. I've slowed down it a lot because I got tired of it being so negative when I thought. But now I understand. After watching tonight again, for the 15th time, having my heart ripped out of my chest watching wrestling because you put so much time. I spent so between Raw, so 3 hours of Raw, right? Just for wrestling, just on WWE alone. I want to get an AEW and MLB. 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, 2 hours of NXT, and a 3 hour pay. So I put 10 hours, 10 hours in this week. 10 hours this week in wrestling. And this pay per view is how you pay that off, WWE. And this is not the first time you've done it. And the thing with Gable, and the reason why I'm getting so mad about it, is because when I see the stuff like Gable, it's like you are just like, fuck your audience. You do it because. See, now I'm getting mad. I'm trying not to lose my thought. But what really bugs me is you give the fucking crown jewel people, and I don't care about Saudi Arabia, okay, but it's the fact that this prince, even if you live in that country, you know your prince is a piece of shit, okay? You take his blood money, and you give them everything they asked for. Meanwhile, and even that's crappy, because those have been crappy, to be honest. There's not been really a good crown jewel that I've seen, right? And I hate to even watch them. I didn't watch them. I watched the highlights of them, because that's what WWE wants me to do. They want me to watch a highlight for them, because they want you to take that 5 to 10 to 15-second clip, and that's what they want you to remember and forget about everything else that happened. So they'll make a video package out of Hell in a Cell, probably to make it look cool, right? It'll probably look cool in the video package, but the ones that people that actually watched actually know what happened. So anyway, so now obviously we're gonna have another Gable Corbin match, so they're getting drafted to the same brand. I'm gonna guess Raw. I hope Chad Gable's SmackDown. I hope they keep Baron Corbin on Raw though, because for me, Chad Gable needs to get as far away from Raw and Vince McMahon as he possibly can. I know Vince is probably gonna have a hand on SmackDown still, but at least on SmackDown there'll be more of that sports feel to it, and he's an Olympic gold medalist. I'm pretty sure the network executives at Fox probably looked at tonight and go, "What the fuck are you doing, WWE? That's a gold, not a gold medalist, but he was an Olympic wrestler. He didn't win the gold medal, but anyways, that really bugged me. Okay, this is going a little bit longer than I thought, so I'm gonna try to speed this up a little bit because there were so many things that made me mad on this pay per view. And here's another one, right? You got the Viking Raiders of Braun Strowman versus the OC, which ends in a DQ because 3 guys are beaten up on one in a 6-man tag team match. Like, doesn't that happen all the time? And they threw, like, it was so quick. So number one, there was this part too. So right before it happened, it was like Luke Gallows getting kicked, and everybody stood around and they threw the DQ in right away. It wasn't like it was like this big. It wasn't like they all jumped up and just started kicking him down. They called for the DQ right away. So then they do the DQ, and then they do this stupid thing where they all start brawling, and ends up with the Viking Raiders, or the frig they call them now, diving outside the ring, taking out the OC, and then AJ Styles jumps up the top, goes to hit the phenomenal forearm, and Braun punches AJ on the way down and knocks him so silly, right? This is supposed to be the setup for Tyson Fury, where Braun punches so hard that, like, it was funny. I gotta say this. It was funny, at least chuckle funny, to watch AJ Styles, like, doing all, and the OC doing all this dumb, like, where am I? And, it's 1990, it's 2019, and, it's like when somebody gets knocked silly and they don't know who they are, it was kind of funny. It was chuckle fun, but it was not worth what they did here. So another thing I want to say about, like, I like the Viking Raiders, right? They're okay. I liked them at least in NXT and stuff like that. On the roster, they're not working. What I would say is this. I think the best thing for both of them is to break up. I think Hanson had, like, okay. The reason why I say this is because Hanson at least gets a little reaction in the ring, right? Hanson gets a little bit. Rowe gets none. Rowe gets, like, 0 reaction when he goes in that ring and wrestles. Hanson gets a little bit. Rowe gets none. I think the best thing they could do is, I think Hanson will be a great face. I think Rowe would be a great heel character, okay? I think he'd get away. He needs to change up. Maybe be part of a different faction or something. But I think having a feud between those two, I think, because, look, they've already screwed it up, right? Like, the Viking Raiders screwed. There's nothing they can really do with these guys. They've been trying. There's nothing they can really do with these guys. that's going to get them any more over. The best thing you can hope for is that they break up and they each break out individually. And I know they probably don't want to do that because they've been a tag team for a long time. But the truth of the matter is this: is Hanson needs to be a single guy, and so does Rowe. Or Rowe at least needs to find another tag team partner down the line. Because, and I think he could be a heel, a great heel partner for somebody, or a great heel stable member or something like that. That's the best thing I think he could do for the Viking Raiders. With the Braun Strowman stuff, look, I was actually excited this week when I saw it. I like Tyson Fury. He's great on the microphone. I think Tyson Fury, the Cain Velasquez stuff. A lot of people in wrestling, were kind of, I don't want to say crapping on it because of the way another awkward ending to SmackDown, right? But and I think it's good for wrestling when these kind of characters get involved. I think it brings more mainstream attention, which brings the ratings of which we all want, right? Like everybody that sits there and goes, the ratings don't matter. I'm gonna tell you what, if Raw popped at 8 million, everybody would be losing their minds. If AEW pops 8 million, everybody would lose their mind, right? Because that means they brought in mainstream fans, and they keep saying these lapsed fans. I don't think there's as many lapsed fans as people think they are. A lot of people are older. A lot of older people like wrestling. Like this is one thing I don't get either. Older people like wrestling. Like a lot of 50s or 60s, they like wrestling. It's not that young people don't like wrestling, but it's not as attractive. Where the old people like me, I'm 41, right? I like to have wrestling on just as even background noise. Because it's something I can sit down and watch. If I'm busy doing something, I can just look up and go, oh. And I get what's going on right away. I don't have to sit there and figure out the plot. I don't have to figure out this. I can sit there and watch a match and just watch it, right? At the same time, I want to have exciting stuff happening to keep me intrigued now and then too. And that's what these big programs are supposed to be out. These are the programs I'm supposed to want to sit down and watch for big matches. And when you throw out crap like this makes me not want to waste my time. So I'm going to start doing these podcasts, which is probably bad because I don't want to waste my time. But at the same token, I am going to not be happy about a lot of it, I'll say, probably, by the looks of it. Excuse me. So then we go from the Viking Raiders. I don't want to say go from because I'm not doing this. So then on the pre-show, I'll get to the pre-show, the kickoff show. I think there was only one match tonight. I didn't really watch it because I didn't care. It was Natalya versus Lacey Evans. Natalya wins with a sharpshooter, then knocks out Lacey Evans with a weak-looking woman's right. And then it's announced tomorrow night they're going to have last woman standing match on SmackDown, which another group of girls. Look, I have no problem with Natalya. I think Natalya needs to be a heel, first of all, because she's not a very likable character overall. And then the other part is like, I could care less to see a last woman standing match between these two. I really could care less. I think they need to take Lacey Evans off. I know everybody loves that she stays in character. I have a much better role for her than what she's doing right now. It's not getting over this whole ladies from the '60s or the Southern Belle thing or whatever she's doing. It's just not getting over. I'm sorry, it's just not. I like her. I think she's a great girl. Natalya has never been over. Natalya's been a solid hand now and then. But even then, she has to be in the right position. It's not like she's always just on fire and having great matches. Natalya is solid once in a while, but I think she'd be better served as a heel. So, anyways, I'm hoping this last woman standing match is the last we ever see these two in the ring again because we've seen enough. And the last part is Randy Orton and Mustafa Ali is the last match to talk about. And like I said, this wasn't an order rating. I'm just saying in order of the biggest news. Now, I think this was still pretty early in the card for the most part. I just didn't like the pacing of this match, right? Number one, Ali had this big bruise, and maybe this had something to do with it. Had this big welt across his ribs, and I hope he didn't break a rib or anything. Seems like Randy Orton has a penchant for hurting Mustafa Ali for some reason. I don't know. I don't want to say why, but he just seems to like hurting Ali for some particular reason. Anyway, the match to me, it just was I know Randy has a slow methodical pace, and I get that. The thing is Ali with his fast paced style. Ali really didn't get more than one or two moves in a row at a time. Really, that was the thing that really bothered me. I feel like when he should have got going, he should have connected with 5 or 6 or 7 moves right in a row that were so fast that Orton couldn't keep up with him. But instead, it was this slow. Even Ali was because he would hit a tornado DDT and then he would go to the top. He went to the top rope so fast so many times instead of just doing springboard stuff and dodging and kicking, and it seems like he would get one move and then Randy would put him down, and then one move and then Randy would put him down. So basically the finish came when Orton went for an RKO. Ali did the Ospreay counter to that, and then took a little bit of control, went for I don't want to say springboard, but he springs through the ropes to a face buster. But he went for that, and he walked into an RKO, and that was it. 1, 2, 3. So it really didn't do anything to help Ali. Ali kind of actually looked weak. I thought the pacing was bad. Um, I just didn't care for this match overall. I know some people liked it. I saw online. I don't think it was a terrible match or nothing like that. I just thought that the pacing didn't suit to fit Ali any. I think it just made Randy Orton look dominant, and maybe that was the goal. I think that was a. I think they wanted to make Ali look good, but I don't think it really came across that way on TV. All right, so I'm coming up near to the end of my tape time, and I wanted to talk more about what they should do on Monday night. But I think I'll just do a Monday Night Raw preview instead, because this is about an hour long, and this is about as much as my webcam video will allow me to do until break it up. But overall, I mean, the pay per view was just terrible overall. Let's be honest. You know, you can say what you want about the I see people making excuses about the main event was so bad that it ruins everything. Okay, look, this is the good points of the show. Becky and Sasha, all right, was a good point. Even though Sasha lost, it was a good match. I'm not gonna say Reigns and Harper was a good thing, because I don't think Harper and Rowan should have. I mean, Reigns and Bryan versus Harper and Rowan. I don't think Rowan and Harper should have lost that. So I don't count that as a positive. Charlotte beating Bayley, I don't really have a problem with, as long as they do something with Charlotte and Bayley after this. But still, not a highlight. You know, it was congratulations to Charlotte on her 10th reign. I hope this is actually a long reign for Charlotte. I know a lot of people like to hate on Charlotte, but she is one of the best in the business. Who else are you going to put that belt on? Especially that brings the name value and cachet to it. And she's a beast. She's bigger than most of the girls. She's athletic as all hell. She could stop doing a moonsault any day now, though. But I mean, she's one of the best. She's probably the best female wrestler in the world right now. I know people like to argue with Tessa Blanchard. Well, Tessa Blanchard gets to work with guys, and I'm sorry. When most intergender matches happen, working with a guy actually makes a woman look a lot better. So I'm not going to give Tessa Blanchard you're the best wrestler in the world, female wrestler in the world. I'm going to give that to Charlotte. And until somebody, I think, brings a total package more than she does, that's not going to change. So, so I'll take Charlotte as a small highlight. The Kabuki Warriors winning, but the way they did it, they were heels all of a sudden. So now who are they going to face as faces? Because most of the tag teams out there are heels. And are they going to do Alexa and Bliss and Nikki Cross again? I'm done with that too. I'm done with the Nikki and Bliss tag Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss tag team. So I'm done with that. Gable and Corbin. Yeah, Gable won in a schmozzy way. He should have the thing is Gable should have tapped him out today. This was the match that Gable should have tapped Corbin out and got his revenge. And they're trying to drag it out. And the draft is coming up, and Gable fits more of a SmackDown guy, and Corbin fits more as a Raw guy. So why not just have Gable get his comeuppance? Since The Rock already squashed Corbin on Raw, on SmackDown anyway, then have Corbin go back to Raw and build him back up again a little bit. You could build, because the King of the Ring doesn't mean anything anyway, really, right? The King of the Ring. I hope maybe if they do King of the Ring next year, I'll give you my idea for what they should do with King of the Ring. But so that wasn't a highlight. Then you had Strowman and the Viking Raiders against the OC. That wasn't a highlight. Natalya on the pre-show, that wasn't a highlight. Randy Orton, Mustafa Ali, to me, that wasn't a highlight. To me, that was a slow. Actually, that was when the pay-per-view really started kind of taking a downturn. Really, when I really started to notice that it was taking a downturn. So, what did you have positive out of this pay-per-view? This was nothing really great on this pay-per-view, and in fact, this did more damage to the overall week. And they had a great week at WWE. I won't say it was great, but Raw was not terrible, right? Raw was not overly bad or anything like that. SmackDown was good. NXT was good. And you have AEW. AEW put on a good show this week. So, and I'm not the biggest AEW guy, but they put on a hell of a show this week for their first show. I didn't like everything about it, but a lot of good stuff on that show. So I'm gonna watch again next week. So overall, this pay-per-view, one of the worst pay-per-views WWE has ever done, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people come out and say that, and it's but no, I mean, can you point another one where everything really what on this card? People can point to Brian and Roman Reigns. Sorry, not Ryan. Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns, Eric Rowan, Luke Harper is a good match, and that's fine, but I don't like the finish, and I don't think that was a high point. I don't think that's anything that anybody's going to go back and watch anytime soon, and I don't think any of these matches are. Even the Becky Sasha, yeah, there was some cool stuff in it, but was it anything that blew me out of the water? No. So, WWE, thumbs down. I'm going to make a Raw preview video. I hope you all watch that too. Y'all have a good day. Harold Wrestling, Harold the Herald, out.